Wait for some people to get in. What's up, King? Good to see you back again. Wait for some people to get in. As is mine. Let's wait for some people to get in here and then we'll get started. And if by 5 or 6, even 7 minutes, nobody else gets in, because once again, it is late, then we'll just talk it over regardless. Anyone else in yet? We'll give it another 2 minutes and then begin the discussion. Also, King, do you like my new thumbnail, too, along with my new channel intro? Ever since I got the laptop and did yesterday's Q&A, that sparked me to change everything, like, a huge bunch, which is why I did all that. Alright, I guess we can begin the discussion. I kind of figured more than one person would be in, but like I said, it also is late. So that's going to be the deal with every after discussion, I feel, but it's okay overall. I don't know if I should make the after discussions 50 minutes like the before discussions, so I might just leave it at 35 minutes for the after discussions. That's alright. Man, I don't work anything for a few days, but it just feels right for other people more than myself. I mean, I'm obviously gonna get sleep even if I don't work, but I'm just trying to look out for the audience, that's all. Alright, so let's begin. First, I'm gonna let you say what you thought about the episode before I dive in. And anyone else who's in the room. Pretty epic, and I liked the new variants we saw in the beginning while Rick was fighting them. I didn't notice if they were variants, they just seemed like normal walkers to me. But whenever they were on fire and everything, and one of them lit up after Rick was shot, that was definitely horrifying. Really? That's actually a really good reason. Pearl. Oh, I thought it was something else. That I heard him call the girl something else. One of the two. Like Rick behind me, perfectly demonstrates what happened to him. Only parts I watched World Behind was when Jadis mentioned Rick. That's the only thing I cared about. Around season 10 or 11, I think. Yeah, of course they were going to do that. And the way they showed, I'll wait until you're all done before I go into my thoughts, because it's a lot to unpack at once. Not for me. I'm an expert whenever it comes to freaking time jumps and figuring out stuff. Times, numbers, and calculations are never a problem for me. With anything. I was confused because in Walking Dead World Beyond, they destroyed Omaha. Sad seeing Rick sad and basically giving up on Michonne. Yeah, I got sad at that part too. At that point, I was like, cue the Linkin Park music. Yeah. That's a lot to unpack, and that's a good bit. Now it's for me, so you better pay attention to this because I'm about to unpack a lot right now. Okay. So, my opinion on it, it was awesome. The entrance into it, awesome. Getting, like I said, the only thing I expected or that I wanted to see was flashbacks to whenever Rick blew up the bridge and how he got into the CRM in the first place. And now they didn't show Jadis or Heath yet, which was a minorly disappointing, especially when Rick was out in public with all those dudes and talking to the one dude about going into the tunnel with the padlock. Because I saw production points where Rick was out in the street and he was with Jadis during production. So I'm like, maybe it's going to be like episode 2 or 3 before we even get reintroduced to Jadis. Now, him losing his arm, I wasn't expecting him to, for one thing, be put on a leash, and for another, to cut his arm off to get out of there. That was like beyond savagery. Because look at it this way. They didn't cut off his arm in the show because it's a heck of a lot harder to cut a real person actor from a franchise, unlike the comic version, who got his hand cut off against the governor and then went ahead and died in season 11's like Commonwealth arc against Sebastian. Now, the show, I definitely praise them for not cutting Rick's hand off sooner, because if his hand had been literally scarred, injured, spiked hand with that walker, and literally he could have lost it at any given point, but they never ever did it. So for him to finally lose his hand in that sense, it was out of freaking desperate nature more than anything, and that was just sad because after everything that Rick went through, and after all the pain that his hand went through, he loses it because he's tied to a leash. And no, don't get me wrong, I think it's cool and all because his prosthetic arm. Hi, gamers. Sorry, I'm going over my after discussion for the thing. Anyway, his prosthetic arm, it ain't no hook, but I think it's much better than the hook he got in the comics. Because he got a hook in the comics, unlike Aaron's spiky arm, because Aaron took up Comic Rick's role after Andrew parted the show. But anyways, Comic Rick got the hook, but now we get the ones who live Rick, who gets a freaking prosthetic mannequin metal fist with a sword. And I was like, okay, the prosthetic fist is cool and all, but you could have given him like a sword or something, or like maybe a freaking chainsaw or something like that. And then the second after I said that, a sword popped out of the freaking fist. And I'm like, oh, that just got 1,000 times better. And I'm like, yeah, I'm liking this. And what else I found really freaking poetic and ironic is when Rick was about to cut off his arm, I thought that he was getting his arm cut off because in the leaks, it showed that his arm had scars on it. Like it was a bite mark almost. So I thought that he was cutting off his arm because he was bit. But to find out that he was cutting it out of desperate nature was a whole different matter. And for the poetic and irony of it all, and what I was just getting at, is that the way he showed that he didn't want to do it and how desperate he was poetic to him cuffing up Merle. And oh, I cannot imagine how Merle would just be like laughing at Rick for saying how poetic and ironic that was. And when Rick almost cut off Carl's arm back in season 7. So they're throwing a lot of like big moments, if you're paying attention to it, back at us. And what else? Rick trying to kill himself with the glass, losing all hope, trying to get back to his family. It just shows that he was just at his wit's end. And then to find out that the CRM are the ones who started it all, the ones who bombed Atlanta and Los Angeles. And that's a Fear twist and the Walking Dead twist all in one. To find out Okafor did that, oh, that was big. And even though they weren't the starters of the apocalypse, it still showed that they were the start of how the Atlanta group and how we saw all of that go down. And how the groups that we know of today split. Because think about it this way. If Atlanta and Los Angeles did not get burned to the ground, who knows? Thousands of more people and thousands of more groups, they might have never left. And I can't do what ifs on that because that is far too convoluted and confusing to think about. Let's be honest. And to find out, even though I saw clips of it, that Rick was almost killed by Michonne, that was a great way to bring her back in. And the leaks show that since this episode featured 90% of Rick, that the next episode is going to feature 90% of Michonne and click them together. And that's kind of all I'm really done thinking about. That's really my opinion on it. It was a great episode, and to tie into how Rick got in. Great prosthetic arm, even if he got his arm cut. And Andrew Lincoln played Rick to a full here. Any Rick Grimes acting you saw back in the original Walking Dead, he upped it to 1,000 with the swearing, the big moments with Rick Grimes. He really played it awesome in this episode. I cannot stress enough how good of an episode this was. Now, Dead City, Fear, and the original Walking Dead, they're all good, but The Walking Dead and The Ones Who Live, those are the tops of the Walking Dead franchise, in my opinion. And that's my entire analysis on the first episode. Yeah. Rick losing hope in general was what got me the most. Because after everything, his persistence, his nature, his everything, he was almost ready to just freaking give up. I'm pretty sure Michonne was the one to attack the CRM helicopter because she did kill those soldiers. If anything, yes, I definitely wouldn't put that past because it's way too convenient for that not to be the case. For one thing, and for another, she had to have had help. Maybe some way, shape, or form, because we saw leaks of more than one character on her way to find Rick. And then you gotta wonder, how did she know that Rick was with the CRM? So the next episode will definitely feature 90% of Michonne, I can guarantee it. And then it has to tie into how she finds him. I don't like how Akafar died so early. I thought he would make it at least 3 episodes. Think about it, the episode was over an hour long. So, I mean, while the guy didn't get, like, the most screen time, I feel that, in some kind of way, he deserved it for bombing Atlanta and Los Angeles. Because that could have potentially killed every one of the main characters we know today. So, if anything, I say that it was right and wrong for him to die. Because while he might have been trying to train Rick just gave up all hope and he just wanted to go. But then he just gave up. So, honestly, yeah, you're right, he did serve his purpose. But it was an amazing episode. I've probably gotten more hyped for The Ones Who Live than I was for the entirety of The Walking Dead besides the finale. And probably the finale only because it brought back flashbacks and characters we already knew about, and because it teased Rick and Michonne and all the other spin-offs. But The Ones Who Live, I'm more hyped for that than anything else in The Walking Dead. I can promise you guys that. I think that's why she was taking the masks off them first before she killed them. While that might have been the case, I find it really odd why because she was so shocked that it was him. Like, I agree with you, but why would she bombed the helicopter? So, in all likelihood, unless she or whoever else she was with knew that Rick was on that copter, they would have had to take precautionary measures to make sure that they didn't accidentally kill him. Because for all they know, he could have either not been on the copter at all or killed him on the copter. So it's a lot of literal stuff. Because for one thing, I look into literal stuff because that's just me. But for another, you just got to look at the facts. I get where you're coming from, though. But I guess next episode's just going to feature how she knew where Rick was and what her plan was if she knew that he was on that copter. But I'm surprised. But I'm glad that we also, another thing I forgot to bring up, I'm glad that we got another little hint at what A's and B's truly are, what it actually means. Which means that next episode, either episode 2 or 3, has to give us one of two things. Jadis, a bunch of appearances with her, obviously, because it was teased, and we've seen trailers, and we need to find out what happened to Heath, because the writers teased it, and they can't just leave us high and dry like that. I either want to see him alive, or dead for all I care. I just want to know what happened to him, because besides, like you even saw, his freaking truck in the back row. And just the fact that we heard twists about it. Not that I'm disappointed we didn't get it, but I felt this episode mainly had to cover Rick to say how he's lost everything and how he's been forced to even cut off his hand. And it was just for nothing. He cut off his hand for nothing. But he got a cool prosthetic hand fist with a blade, so that's pretty freaking sick. And the reason you're not seeing that behind me instead of Rick going to cut off his hand is because the picture for it isn't out yet. And if I tried to get a picture off YouTube, that would take a massive amount of editing and finding the clips, and I feel like I'll just post a picture of that on my next before stream, which will be the next episode next Sunday. And hopefully the picture for that will be out by then. I'm willing to bet that it will be. I got A's from B's from is that A's are common to make a cure, and B's are potential people that could join the CRM city. But A's are also killed. We know that because Jada said it in World Beyond, and Okafar said it to Rick and Thorne. They get killed. So how would that be a potential cure? Of course, you and I probably both don't know that, but we're gonna figure it definitely out by the end of all of it. What else? Getting to see Atlanta alongside hearing about the bombings of it, getting to see it. We haven't seen Atlanta since season 5, whenever we were introduced to Dawn and her people. So it's been literally years since we even seen Atlanta. So that was pretty awesome for it to be even shown in the background, and for us to get hints that Okafar was the one who bombed the cities. And how, if you think about it, not only are the CRM, they've been around since the beginning, Rick wasn't hallucinating when he saw that copter. Which is why whenever people are asking me, what if the CRM appeared early? That could actually tie in to that happening. And to think, T-Dog and everyone else called Rick crazy. And then Rick kept seeing those copters, and they were there the whole time. They were literally teasing the CRM right from under our noses. And all this time. And none of us knew. I had a hunch that the helicopters and everything, especially after they made more appearances, I wasn't fully onto it yet. But I knew, and I had a hunch that the helicopters were somehow, some way connected to something bigger this whole time. And then Jadis's group with the CRM and getting like little hints of that group, I'm like, no, that can't be the same copters. And now I know that they've been the big bad this whole time. That's actually a really good point. Why would he go so? The only helicopter we know isn't the CRM, which the National Guard governor ran into. True. But for some reason, I can't help but feel like maybe somehow, some way that copter was somehow still connected to the CRM in some way, shape, or form. Unless there's true proof that the National Guard was that copter. Now that I'm thinking about the CRM being around this whole time, now I'm starting to question that. Okay, so we pretty much discussed about everything that we have seen and like everything that made the episode completely awesome. Now, what are your expectations, or what do you think or want for the next episode, the second one? My expectations for episode 2 is explaining what Michonne has been up to. My thoughts exactly. Because she's been gone from the group for a year, so that's a lot of time. You think that's a lot of time? Rick's been gone from the group for over 7 years. And also has more info. Also more info on Jadis. That's why the episode was 90% about Rick, because he'd been gone that long. All right. Now for me, my expectations, pretty much my expectations I've already kind of disclosed, but I'll review them in greater detail. My expectations for the next episode are that they obviously tell us what Michonne's been up to, but think about it this way. Since Michonne's been gone from the group for over a year, and Rick's been gone for over 7 years, they might make less of the episode be about Michonne. And maybe since it was focused on an hour exactly of Rick's story, it might only feature a half an hour to 40 minutes of Michonne. And then they regroup together, and that's how the story or the episode officially wraps up. Not right whenever they reunite, because that would be just like episode 1 and there'd be no point to ending it off like that. I'm talking about whenever they group together and what happens after. But that's what I'm basically thinking. Michonne is, we get to know what happens to her, they reunite, and they plan an escape. And I think that Rick, knowing Michonne is actually alive, will actually get Rick his stride back. That was an excellent episode. That it was, Sophia. I guess I could stay for the full 50 minutes. It's just I wasn't planning on anyone else being in the stream. It's late. Anyways. I think what I'm thinking is, yeah, Rick will definitely get his stride back, or I would at least hope so, whenever Michonne is actually, they reunite with each other. That will actually get Rick the stride back, because the only reason that he didn't get his stride back is because he tried to escape 4 times and had to cut his arm off, and he never got out. And he was so close to getting out that 4th time, or whatever, on that mission, but then that stupid girl had to go ahead and ruin it. That stupid girl with the freaking apron, or whatever the frick, whatever the frick, the bandana. That would have been his 5th time. Yeah. That just goes to show that he had really given up at that point. But I think Michonne reuniting with him and them being back together. No, not Throne. The other girl. The one who, whenever Rick killed the walker, and then that girl came out of nowhere and screamed. And then Rick had to save her. But for Sophia's sake, he couldn't. He still has classic officer friendly, and dude, that's so true though. Because even after Rick has lost everything, he's still a softie. I think saving Negan changed him. No, it was losing Carl that freaking saved him from being consumed in utter darkness. Speaking of utter darkness, watch my story about Dale surviving Rick is just, but you guys probably already know that. But yeah, Rick will definitely get his stride back, and if he doesn't, it's because that he doesn't think that he can. Or him and Michonne will definitely, find a way to get out. And as for finding out about everybody back home, I seen leaks, and Judith, he asks about Judith, and Michonne tells him about that, but I think that everything else should wait until they're freaking out of Dodge. What's the point of telling Rick anything if they don't get out? Rick would bite his hand off. Rick hasn't let go of his old self yet. Maybe Shane needs to influence him some more for that. Well, technically, he did whenever he helped him. Whenever Shane, Herschel, Sasha, and everyone came back to him in the flashback before he blew up the bridge. Speaking of which, we got Laurie's voice before Shane talked, but we didn't get Glenn, and we didn't get Laurie. They should have been there. Someone Rick cared about more about Glenn. Yeah. Also forgot about the story of his younger self. I know it wasn't important to the story, but it showed a moment of courage and determination for him. Oh yeah, the story about his dad. About how his dad burned the barn to save them. And how that ultimate story made him literally join the CRM, and then Michonne just saves him. Nah, a Kafar was okay, but honestly, for bombing, if you think about it, alongside the fact that the CRM have been around this entire time, under our noses, Okafar and the CRM, they started The Walking Dead. Because if it weren't for Okafar, Los Angeles and Atlanta would have never been bombed, and thousands of characters would have been alive. The Walking Dead would have been over in a season if all those characters were alive. The CRM would have been nothing if all those characters in Atlanta and Los Angeles were alive. But Okafar, he started it. To think that the character who died in the first episode of the spin-off is the one who started the entirety of the Walking Dead franchise. That, ultimately, I feel, is the best plot twist that anything I've ever seen in my life. Alongside Saw twists. Like, every twist in the Saw franchise, combine that to 1,000 with the ones who live. That's how big the twist is. CRM began with the apocalypse. They are the remnants of the... How do you know that? Is that proven? And what do you mean began with the apocalypse? And old remnants of the US government and military. All I know is that the CRM is the strongest military on the planet. I saw a YouTube comment mentioning if Shane placed Rick and found out who truly bombed Atlanta to see his reaction, he literally saw it happen too. They were the ones who destroyed the US cities. They began with that. So you're telling me Okafor was not part of the CRM. He was ordered by the US government to bomb Los Angeles and Atlanta. Is that what you're saying? Because it was him who did it. So you're telling me he was ordered by the US government. What I want to know is, did the CRM start the apocalypse or did it begin in France? That would make the most logical sense. Now, Sophia and anybody else who's in the room, since I've mainly got King's opinion, how did you enjoy the episode, and what are your thoughts, expectations, and wants for the next one, episode 2? That's what I'm thinking now too, since the CRM have been around the entire time. All right, we got to wrap this up here within the next few minutes, because once again it is late and I don't want to go over like too much of the 50-minute period. So what's everybody's that I haven't heard yet? Everyone who hasn't said anything yet, what are your thoughts and opinions on the episode, and what do you hope to see for the next one? Or want to see? Hi, King of Portals. We're actually ending the stream here, the after discussion in the stream here pretty soon. We're just going over last minute, like what we thought of the first episode and what we want to see for the next one. I already got King Devin's opinion and what he hopes for the next episode. I just want to hear everybody else. Sophia? And what about Gamers Lobby and whoever else was here earlier? Just because I want to touch upon everybody before we go. Okay. I feel like they're going to show more flashbacks. Oh yeah, most definitely. Also some major deaths. Jadis, maybe Rick Stone or Rick will die. Jadis could die. Kinda, yeah. Jadis way more than Michonne and Rick. But alright, I think I got everybody's opinions and expectations and everything. So, ultimately, thank you all for joining the after stream. I'm sorry I'm ending it for most of you coming in, but I definitely don't want to be on here as long as my Q&As. And it is late. I'm not going to bed, obviously. I've still got stuff to do, but thank you for joining the after stream. I will see you guys on here next week for the next before and after stream for episode 2. Tomorrow, stay tuned for the next episode of Dale's Story. That'll be around like morning time, kind of. And next Saturday, obviously, for Q&A. I don't know why I'm explaining the Q&A part, though. But I'll see you guys all later. And I hope we all enjoyed the freaking epic episode of Rick frickin' Grimes.